Art has long been viewed as an emotional outlet, but can visual patterns in paintings actually reflect psychological instability? My research combines psychology, art therapy, and quantitative analysis to explore whether artistic features in Vincent van Gogh's paintings correlate with historically documented periods of his mental distress. Hello, my name is Grace Sue, and I'll walk you through my study, Mental Health Analysis through Vincent van Gogh's paintings, correlation between visual features and psychological instability. According to the World Health Organization, over 1 billion people are living with a mental disorder. That is roughly 1 in 7 individuals globally. It is no exaggeration to say that we are living in an era of a global mental health epidemic. Currently, we have the mental health screening tools and questionnaires such as BDI and K10, but these self-reported methods rely on people accurately describing their emotions and symptoms, making them prone to intentional and unintentional bias. For example, the BDI asks individuals to rate their current emotion out of 3. This is what one of the 21 questions of a BDI can look like. It is very obvious that if you choose the 0 point option, you will be diagnosed as mentally stable. And if you choose the 3 points answer, you will be diagnosed as mentally unstable. These clearly obvious choices make the results often inaccurate and unreliable. And this creates a need for alternate methods that are more indirect and non-invasive. Therefore, I chose to study whether artistic visual features correlate with psychological instability and can potentially give us insight into a person's mental health and act as a nonverbal indicator to detect changes in mental health. Psychologists in art therapy have proposed that unconscious emotions reflect on projected drawings. I wanted to test whether changes in Van Gogh's mental condition corresponded with measurable changes in his painting style. Van Gogh was selected because his life is extensively documented through historical records, such as letters written to his brother Theo. These records made it possible to identify periods of relative psychological stability and instability. And based on thorough research, I classified Van Gogh's mental state in 3 categories. R period, consider his relatively stable phase. The Saint-Remy period, during which Van Gogh was hospitalized in a mental asylum, and the Auverchoise period, which reflected increasing instability shortly before his death. The reasoning behind why I selected these 3 main periods for the differences in his mental state is from 1888, February 20th, when Van Gogh arrives at Arles. He was mentally stable, fairly stable, because he had this hope of making this paradise for artists in art where they can focus on drawing and painting solely. But then after Gauguin arrived in 1888, October 23rd, when they were living together, they had many disputes, and he was often irritated, and it fluctuated his mental state. And after living with Gauguin and being stressed, he infamously cut off his ears and got sent to Saint-Remy to become hospitalized in 1889, May 8th. And after a while, he left the mental asylum in Saint-Remy to go to Auverchoise, where he was monitored by a doctor, but then he was able to freely live until he died by suicide on 1890s, July 29th. So this is why I split the periods accordingly. The R period, Saint-Remy period, and an Auverchoise period. Each period representing the general location of where he was and his mental instability. Then, 4 paintings representing each period were selected, 12 paintings in total. Landscapes were specifically chosen to maintain consistency in subject matter and reduce unnecessary variation. These were the paintings selected for the stable R period. For the stable period, the lines are very crisp, straight, and strong, and this will change throughout the years. In the Saint-Remy hospitalization period, these are paintings that were selected. You can see a clear change from a straight lines to more of a swirly, messy line strokes. And finally, for over Schwartz period or a period of increasing instability, these paintings were selected. You could see a clear change in aggressive brushstrokes and the thickness of the lines. For example, the painting We Feel with Crows was painted right before he died with suicide. And if you go to this place where he painted this painting today, you'll see two rows that are perfectly straight. And that is not illustrated in his painting. So this shows his mental instability and psychological torment shortly before his death. To make the analysis quantitative, I created a structured scoring rubric based on projective drawing theories by renowned psychologists. 6 indicators were evaluated: line intensity, stroke repetition, directional variability, saturation level, complementary color contrast, and structural stability. Each indicator was scored from 1 to 3, a score of 1 representing the lowest level of instability, while a score of 3 represented the highest. 36 evaluators independently scored each painting without knowing its historical context. The works were scored separately and then averaged across evaluators to produce a final score for each artwork, which were then calculated for each period to enable comparative analysis. The results showed a very clear trend. The average total score increased steadily across the 3 psychological periods, from 8.25 to 12.94 and to 14.63. The relatively low standard deviation shows the consistency of the scoring system. This supports the idea that artistic expression may reflect underlying psychological states. These findings align with theories from art therapy and projected drawing works. A consistent upward trend in cumulative scores was observed across increasing levels of psychological instability, suggesting a positive correlation between visual intensity and mental instability. But at the same time, there are important things to keep in mind. It is important to understand that the study supports the correlation for the specific case study and does not establish a causal relationship. And artistic features can be influenced by style and context and individual variability. Because of this, the research should be considered exploratory rather than diagnostic. Nevertheless, it demonstrated how art and psychology can be connected through quantitative analysis and holds potential for future applications. For example, this study can be expanded to more artists to make the results more accurate and to be compared with already existing clinical measures so that we can have a more solid proof of the potential of art as an early detection mechanism for detecting changes in mental instability. In conclusion, by transforming visual artistic features into measurable data, this research helps bridge art and psychology while opening possibilities for non-verbal approaches to understanding mental states. This study introduced a new quantitative framework for transforming visual artistic features into measurable psychological indicators, demonstrating potential for art as quantitative evaluation of psychological tendencies. Thank you.